Today we're going to learn how to factor x squared minus 11x plus 24, or any other trinomial, using the distributive property. In order to do this, there are two structures you can choose. You can either use the distributive property in a box, or you can use it with the grouping method, which we'll be using parentheses instead. So we're going to start by picking out a, b, and c. Now in this trinomial, a is equal to 1, b is equal to negative 11, and c is 24. Now, the first thing we need to find is, what is a times c? Well, 1 times 24 is 24. So we now need to think of factors of 24 that will add up to b, which is negative 11. So I can think of 6 times 4 or negative 6 times negative 4, but those don't add up to negative 11. When I start thinking about that, I would end up with negative 8 plus a negative 3, which adds to negative 11 while still multiplying to 24. So if I'm going to use the box, I'm going to put the first term in the upper left-hand corner and the last term in the bottom right-hand corner. Meanwhile, if I was using a group, I can go ahead and start by setting the first and last term up as well. Oops, that's a 4. Now what I'm going to do with the negative 8 and the negative 3 is I'm going to say that I know that negative 11x can be changed into negative 8x plus negative 3x. And I can do the same thing if I'm going to be using grouping instead. Now that I actually have my groups, I'm going to add my parentheses. Now, what I'm about to do is basically the same thing. I'm going to be taking the GCF of a binomial in both the box and in the grouping method. And that's why I say that this is distributive property in reverse. So if I look at the top row of the box, the GCF of x squared and negative 8x would be x. And I would need x times x to equal x squared, and x times negative 8 to equal negative 8x. Meanwhile, I have x times something will be equal to negative 3x, which would be negative 3. And I can check this. Negative 3 times negative 8 is also equal to positive 24. So that my factors are x minus 3 times x minus 8. And we can see the same thing in this grouping method here. The GCF of this binomial is the same as the top row of the box. And the GCF of the second binomial will be negative 3, and when I just factor that out, I'll be left with x minus 8. Now I actually have a new GCF of this expression, which happens to be a binomial instead of just a monomial. So I'm going to factor that out first. So now this has been pre-factored out, and I'm left with x minus 3.